Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures, Daily Dose of Nature. Today's topic, getting ready for the great Uganda Gorilla Safari, presented by NatHab Expedition Leader, Richard Gouveia. I'm your host, Rob Mess. Thank you all so much for joining us here today. Over to you, Richard.
Thank you, Rob, and thank you to everyone for tuning in this afternoon. We are going to discuss the ins and outs and the beauty of the Great Uganda Gorilla Safari. I'm also going to cross over into the ideas of Rwanda, as we currently run 3 different types of expeditions across the area. So one is a 10-day expedition, which will take you just through Uganda. Then there's a photographic and a non-photographic or naturalist departure, which takes you through Uganda and then into Rwanda for a further 2 treks. My name is Richard de Gouveia, and I have been guiding with NatHab for around 10 years now, and I've been doing this trip since the beginning, and I can tell you that it is one of the most spectacular things that you could possibly do in your life. And the reason being is the primates overall are just incredible. The great apes are incredible, and being around them is so different to most wildlife experiences. Now, for me, starting off in a safari basis where we were going in vehicles to see leopards and lions and elephants, and if you were out of the vehicle and you had a rifle in your hand to protect yourself, it was weird to be around animals on foot. Here, you're in amongst families. Animals are walking between you, and it is a very surreal and very different situation. And on top of that, this trip is a little bit more physical. So let's So unfortunately, we lost a little bit of audio, so you missed the songs, but you got to see the visuals of it, and that's the most important part. But this trip is a very diverse type of trip. Its focus is mainly on the great apes. So we'll be going in to see the highlight, which are the gorillas, the mountain gorillas, which have really flourished under ecotourism and grown with their numbers and everything as time has gone on, which is really awesome to see a powerful impact from you coming to visit these guys. And just spending time with them, you will see why there's such a connection that can be had. From big silverbacks to little babies, they're all around, they're all inquisitive, and you get to be in their space. The chimpanzees are also a very different, very cool part to add to this situation. When most people book this trip, it's to see the gorillas. The first time I went to do this trip and I was shadowing another guide, it was about the gorillas. And when I got to the chimps, my brain blew up because they can be very rambunctious, very auditory. They shout, they scream, they buttress and hit roots, and there's this drumming noise that goes through the forest. It's really, really, really beautiful. And they get just as close, and you go, wow, this is really 2 of our very close relatives right up in front of us. Now, as we go through this, I'm hoping to leave a bit of time at the end so that anyone who has any questions can ask them, and we can answer a few of those. While we're going along on these journeys, we're also looking at other primates. So while the great apes are obviously our very important part of the whole thing, so your gorillas and chimps, but there are 8 other monkey species that we get to see on this trip. Not all get seen every single time. On this last one that I've just returned from last week, we got to see all 10. And this is one of the beautiful great-cheeked red-tailed monkeys, sorry, that is in there, and a vervet monkeys. We've got colobus monkeys, both red and black and white, blue monkeys, Lahurst monkeys, great-cheeked mangabees, and a little favorite is the golden monkey, which is right at the end of the Rwanda section. So if you do the 14-day trip, our last full day is spent with the golden monkeys in the morning. But along the way, it's not just about monkeys. We also get to go on a boat cruise along the Kazinga Channel, which is the highest density of hippopotamus in Africa. And this means that there's great wildlife interaction. And it's about a 2-hour boat ride, and we'll show you what the boat looks like shortly. But on this last trip, the guests summed it up so beautifully. It was like watching a 2-hour Nat Geo special, because it was non-stop. Didn't matter, you went 5 yards, 10 yards, there was always something new to see. Bird life is insane. Photography is off the chart. Hippos, crocodiles, elephants, buffalo, sometimes a big cat. I haven't had the pleasure of that, but the day before we arrived, there was a leopard on the bank. So anything can happen on these trips. So it's really great. The bird life is spectacular. Uganda has over 1,000 bird species on its own, and throughout the trip, there's not an emphasis on it, but we do get opportunities to really bird watch. Although the forest birding itself is not really a highlight, because when we're moving to see the chimps or the gorillas, we're on a beeline. We have to get there, and then on the way out, just if any of you are birders, you know what forest birding is like. We can arrange other walks for you at different times to try and get more birding in, but those will be outside of the normal activities. We also make a stop for a night at the moment in 2023, but from next year, there will be 2 nights for the 14-day trip at Ishasha Wilderness Camp. And currently the Uganda trip, just the Uganda trip, has 2 nights here. And there's buffalo, there's potentially tree climbing lions. Unfortunately, their numbers have dwindled a lot over the last few years because of interaction with people, but they are collared and there are opportunities to see them. And especially when there are 2 nights in Ishasha, it gives a greater opportunity to get a hold and see these beautiful, beautiful cats. But bird life is all throughout, and you get to get some really great photos, and photographically, the trip just sings. Absolutely, absolutely sings. And if you go on a photographic destination with one of our tour leaders that is photographically oriented, you will be taught the ins and outs, and especially trying to photograph gorillas and chimps in a forest is very difficult. So we try and put some emphasis on helping you get to that point. I've also done other webinars on preparing for photographing in the jungles, which will give you a better understanding of equipment needed, rental of lenses, so you have fast enough lenses to deal with the low light, and giving you general tips just to get you off the ground and get you ready for what's happening. Now, our packing is quite an interesting part, because we're going into a rainforest, and it wouldn't be called that if it didn't rain. So let's look at weather. While we can have beautiful sunny skies with epic views and sunny days where the sun comes shining through into the forest, we do have days where it gets wet and miserable and unhappy. And in order to prepare you for that, you have to bring a few things along. Along with that, with the things you bring along, a good attitude towards the idea that you may get wet will do you the world of good in experiencing it. So let me show you a little video of wet.
Welcome to Kibali Forest. We're in the rainforest. It's raining. Go figure it out. What a cool experience. We're now going to cruise through here to look for the chimps. It's a beautiful day. Thunderstorm overhead. We're all well prepared with ponchos, rain covers, all the rest, and we'll go see what the chimps are doing in this craziness. The rain's coming down harder and harder as we're going along. Just found some fresh chimpanzee dung, and hopefully they're not too far away. The rain doesn't bode well for them being on the ground. The chimps in the rain are up in trees, so it goes. We use what we use, and we're going back to a fig tree now where we initially found them. There's some shouting from that side, so let's go see what they're doing. Yeah, they're coming down. Come with me, come with me. We managed to find them. Patience paid off. One of the males came down. He was cruising around. He put on a bit of a show for us, a yawn, just watching a young female in a tree that walked up. She was trying to get to him, a bit more afraid of us. Males are definitely more habituated in that way. And eventually she got around, he got around. They came together, quick mating session, and then off. Now the sun's out. It's a beautiful afternoon in the forest. It's wet, it smells amazing, the sounds are amazing, and we're going to head back towards the lodge.
So as you can see, weather changed within the space of 2 hours from pouring rain to sunny and beautiful, and it changes on a whim. So we have to expect that weather is going to change, and in order to make it comfortable, we need to pack. And packing is going to be vital to everything because we're limited to weight. While the photographic trips have a little bit of leeway for extra room for your camera gear and stuff, we're pretty set on what you bring along. And the first thing is ensuring that you have a soft-sided duffel, because we go in a small plane where they will not take a hard-sided bag on the plane. You will end up taking a rubbish bags with you if you do not bring the correct bag. So the right size duffel, the gear store on NatHab has a range of different ones to choose from. Just choose correctly and wisely and to your size needs. But the less you travel with, the happier you are. I can guarantee it. All of the lodges along the way, specifically in Dali, the first stop where we have 3 nights, Bahoma, the third stop where we have 3 nights, they all do laundry. And if you're going into Rwanda, you have more laundry there at your own expense, but it's like $1 a shirt. So it's not going to blow the bank up. So there is opportunity to wash the things. A lot of the time when I'm walking in the jungle, I'll wear the same pants 2 days in a row. There's a bit of mud on it from the first day. The quick dry pants will be fine. We just go trekking back in there and I get them washed at the end. So my general packing is 3 pairs of zip off quick dry pants. I will have 3 long sleeve NatHab safari shirts and a few t-shirts in order to switch between, and hiking boots, normal shoes, a pair of flip-flops or sandals for when I don't want to wear any shoes, and a hat and a buff is quite important. This will work really well, these NatHab buffs, because there's a lot of dust as we're going along, dust and smoke, and if that irritates you, it's always nice to be able to put your face mask up and cover your face, especially with the dusty, smoky things. The dry bags work really well for certain things, because when you're in the jungle, if you've got anything that you don't want to get wet, you could put in this and keep it safe. A backpack is very necessary based on the fact that you will be carrying your stuff into the chimps, because we do not provide a porter there. and your porter for the gorillas, which we supply 1, and I suggest getting 2, an extra $20 for another person. Trust me, it can change the world. We'll talk about that, and I'll show you a video on that in a little bit. But a backpack is necessary for your water, for your raincoat, for your camera, and for your any medicines or anything you may need. And then when we're going to the gorillas, your lunch pack, because it is a full day event, and it's very likely that we may be there after lunch, and you will need something to eat and keep your sugar levels up. So that's a good thing. Good hiking boots are a necessity for the walk. Please check them before you leave and make sure that you've worn them in before you leave. So if you're going on the gorilla trek in 2 months, start wearing them every day or twice a week, just to wear them in and get comfortable. You don't want to be going on a long hike up a mountain and have blisters to worry about, because it might spoil the next day's trekking. So just a thought on that. I'm going to run you through a video on what I thought was necessary for packing. Okay, I'm going to start that video again.
Good morning, folks. So I am in Kibale rainforest at the moment. We're busy cruising through with the guests. We've just had a chimp experience, and I thought I'd give you a little rundown of what you are going to need on your journey into this amazing place. So for the most part, our walks are vary in difficulty, from pretty easy in the forest here to really hard, and just going after chimps can be quite difficult. The most important things we're going to need are hiking boots, longer socks, so that we can tuck our pants in, because there are things out here called safari ants. Our normal safari shirts, which will be kept down to keep your arms from being done. Look at this beautiful big tree here with big buttress roots. Quick dry pants work really well, and you'll pack some rain pants for the gorillas. The other thing that you can bring if you want are gaiters, but these are supplied in the gorilla areas, so it's not necessary to get the extra ones if you don't feel the need. A rain jacket is very important. We're in a rainforest, so don't forget a rain jacket, a good light one that won't be too hot, will really serve you well in terms of everything there. And a good backpack for cameras, to carry your raincoat, your water, water bottle, NatHab or otherwise. We try and keep our plastic consumption down as much as possible, and refilling water bottles is a great way to do that. For now, binoculars are important. Camera straps are quite important for the photographers. So I have this Peak Design strap, which works really well. And I also have this Joby strap, which straps into the bottom of that. And there are sling straps that go across me, which allow me to just keep my cameras in the right place and look after everything.
All right. So now that we're past the audio problems, the other things to think about for your backpacks is a rain cover, and just so that gets covered in case there is some rain. I often bring a second little poncho that I pack inside there, so if I need extra protection, I can put it over my raincoat, because rain jackets only last so long, but the lightweight ones work pretty well in the greater sense of things. The other thing I forgot to mention here was a mask, bringing a few of the medical masks, because we still wear masks in the chimps and gorillas. And while they'll get supplied in the gorillas, the chimps won't have, and if nobody has, that leaves you in this awkward position. So masks are important, as we are so closely related to them that we could pass on our communicable diseases to them. Our arrival is awesome, because we get into Entebbe International Airport, and you will go to immigration. Now, this can vary in timing from anything that'll take you 10 minutes to an hour and a bit. When you arrive, you will have a representative that will meet you before immigration. You will have a sign that will have your names on it, and you will go with him, and he will show you through and help you with your luggage and connect you to your local driver, or to a local driver that will then take you through to the main office or to the hotel where you're then going to go. Now, when you arrive and before you leave, you need a visa. You can either get a Ugandan visa and that have push for it. If you are doing, so the Ugandan visa is pretty easy to get, but if you are doing the extension into Rwanda or extending any which way to Kenya, an East Africa tourist visa is really easy to get. It's 1 or 2 extra pieces of paperwork on the exact same platform as getting the Uganda visa. And all that takes is a yellow fever card, a ID passport photo, a itinerary, a plane ticket, and your passport copy. Those 5 things, you upload them. The only limitation is that they need to be smaller. It's like 200 kilobytes, which can be the finicky part of this whole thing. It costs you $100 for the East Africa tourist visa. It costs you $50 for the Uganda visa if you do that alone. And if you get the East Africa visa, it goes for all of the countries. So you just go through. If not, that's not a problem. If you only get the Uganda visa, we will then stand when you are going into Rwanda, if you're doing that trip, and we will go through another immigration process, which extends our time on that side. Sometimes it can be a little bit strange, but we get it done anyway. My recommendation is the East Africa tourist visa. But ultimately, when you arrive in the country, you are going to be met by a lot of friendly people. The Ugandans and the Rwandans are incredibly open and hospitable. Uganda especially is easier for us as tourists because they speak English, and a lot of people speak English. So it's really nice to be able to converse with people and break in. And then there are always local guides with us. So while you may have my ugly face to look at, you will at least have some handsome guys. So depending on your group, we will either have 1 or 2 vehicles that will go with us, and these 2 gentlemen or 1 gentleman, depending on how many vehicles you have, will be with you looking after and being in the background, helping me or any expedition leader do their job to the best. And these guys are awesome. Now, in terms of getting there and bringing money, gratuities are taken care of. Everything except your expedition leader is taken care of, from hotels to activities to the original porter to even your local guides. There is an option now that NANHAB have provided that when you get home, you will be able to get a form and send off a visa request to say, I would like to give an extra gratuity of X amount, and you can do that with pleasure, which helps you not carry thousands and thousands of dollars with you. That gratuity, though, is spread at NANHAB's discretion across. So what I do find is that the 2 local guides, or 1 local guide, depending on how many there are, these guys you become very connected to. You will want to help them more, and that platform at the moment doesn't allow for specification of people. So if you want to bring an extra bit of money along, that would be a good place to do it. And then if you decide to take me up on my offer of saying you need 2 porters for the gorillas, whether it's easy or hard, it's an extra $20 a trip to get for every trek for a porter. So that'll be $80 extra for the gorillas just on porters. And trust me, you may have the easiest walks and you go, Richard, why did I take an extra porter? But there's always 1 walk. There can always be 1 walk. And we had a doozy on this trip. The first 3 walks, people were saying, why did we take 2 porters? We don't mind, we're helping jobs and everything. But the 4th walk was brutal. hour and a half to get through the jungle in Rwanda, ducking and dipping and diving underneath bushes, over things, muddy conditions, up mountains, down mountains, on routes, slashing our way with machetes through things. Trust me, your money is so worth having that second person to push and pull you up the mountain. So those are the financial things. Our transportation is pretty simple. On the first full day after we've had our welcome dinner, we will jump in one of these small caravan planes and take a short flight of just over an hour to get to Kasese, where we will meet those local guides that I was referring to. And they'll be waiting there with the vehicles, and we have a short drive of about an hour to get through to the lodge for the first day. Our vehicles look like this. We have pop-up roofs for safari, big windows, and everyone gets a window seat. You can have 6 seated in the back. There is a fridge at the back to keep drinks cool, and 1 person in the front if need be. So that's why we normally have 2, because you can have anything upwards of 12 people on the trip, plus your expedition leader. These open top roofs for when we get to safari are very cool, because you can lean your cameras on the top and you get this very different cool view out the top area. And we have some awesome wildlife sightings that happen along the way. The boat, when we do the Kazinga Channel and we do the boat, this is what the boat looks like. And we cruise up to the shore, and it offers a very different photographic perspective and just an awesome feel to see these animals from the water side. There's something really calm and tranquil and awesome about that thing. And again, gratuities for somebody like the boat driver there, we take care of them. If you guys wish to give extra, that's up to you, but it's totally possible. Our accommodation varies along the way. At NatHab, we're not trying to blow you away with 5-star, yet sometimes we end up there. But for the most part, we're trying to keep you comfortable and put you in places that you have the best experience. So the first lodge, after we've stayed at a hotel number 5 in Entebbe, I'm not going to go through the bigger hotels that we stay at, because they're one night and it's really nice anyway, so it wouldn't hurt. This is Ndali Lodge, which is on a crater lake. This crater lake is 400 feet deep. There's a walk that goes around the edge of this that you can do self-guided or guided. There's a swimming pool. There's a sauna down the bottom. It is awesome. It is a little rustic, but beautiful. They've got a little bit of USB chargers in here and solar lights to keep things going. But for the main part, charging and everything's done in the room. And it takes us an hour and a half after the flight to get to this lodge. We're here 3 nights, and it is beautiful. Really beautiful. We then have a drive from there to Ishasha Wilderness. We stop for the boat, but it takes about 4 hours of driving and then a little bit of safari to get on the boat. And then we go another 3 hours. So it's a brutal day of driving, with the second part of the drive being very rough and on dirt roads. So it's going to shake your being, and you've just got to think of it as one of those shake the weight off, because you're eating such nice food. These tents that you stay in are incredibly comfortable and beautiful, and there are bucket showers. So you actually order hot water, and they come and they hoist the water up, and they say your shower's ready, and then you open the taps and enjoy your shower. So if you're doing the Uganda trip this year, just Uganda, you will have 2 nights here, which is awesome. And if you're doing the Uganda Rwanda trips this year, you will only have 1 night here, with next year having 2 nights. And this is in Ishasha Wilderness Camp. And it's famous for the tree climbing lions, but as I said, timing has not been great on those guys. From there, we will have a short drive of about 2.5 hours, again on very bumpy roads, but more comfortable than the ride to Ishasha, to Bohoma Lodge, which some of the guests now described as being in a tree house. And it is exactly that. It feels like that because you're on these very steep slopes, and you have these views of the jungle, and you're in this little log cabin, and it's beautiful. The temperature's cooler because you're in a rainforest. It's just a really, really beautiful rustic space to be in. This is your bed, there's a bathroom, shower, everything works beautifully, and you are in the impenetrable forest right by the gorillas. We actually take a 2-minute walk from there to get to the starting point of the gorillas, where you will do 2 treks in Uganda, regardless of which trip you're doing. If you went on from there to Rwanda, we go to a place called Hotel to 5 Volcanoes Hotel, and this is a beautiful little lodge, more city-based because we're in a little town called Musanze, and it looks onto the volcanoes, which you have sparse views of, but there's views of them. And this is really not about the accommodation, it's about being in Rwanda. It takes about 7 to 8 hours, depending how long the border crossing takes, for us to drive through here. The first bit being a little bit bumpy and brutal, the second bit opening up and we're on tarmac road, and then life is good. And it's this weird thing of going from Uganda to Rwanda, that you are moving from the correct side of the road to the right side of the road. So we change over to the opposite side of the road for this. And again, the rooms are very comfy. They have little balconies where you can sit outside, and bathrooms are very comfortable. But the food along the way is something that surprises everyone. Ndali Lodge, which this is here, just blows everyone's socks off. And we have various different cuisines and things, a lot of local food that is optional along the way. So you'll just have to figure your way through that. A lot of fruit, and the fruit is magnificent. It'll blow your minds. It's the sweet treat of everything. So enjoy the fruit as we're going along. And then dietary requirements, no problem. I mean, especially this lodge, gluten-free. They make gluten-free pasta, they make gluten-free bread, they make gluten-free desserts. It's spectacular. Vegetarian, no problem. We can deal with most dietary requirements. So don't be shy and just enjoy the food. The nice part about this is you at least get active, so you can eat a bit more or feel a little less guilty when you've eaten a bit more after the walks. So our activities range, but for the most part, there's a fair amount of walking involved. There are short safari bits that go along, but we will be spending time in nature, walking through forests, walking through areas that are unexpected. This is unexpected. This is a swamp walk that we do on the first day in Kibali Forest after a night at Ndali. We go on a swamp walk, and some days are wetter than others. And this was one of the experiences we had walking along, and they give us gumboots, so you at least take off your shoes and wear theirs, but water is part of it, rainforests are part of it. This was more wet season, so it was a little wetter. This was October last year.
Thank you so much.
Let's just do this.
Oh,
We're gonna grab this boot. Oh, listen to that.
Gotta love it.
So needless to say, that was a fun experience. So let me take you through some of the gorilla treks that we did, and as I spoke you through these things, and then we can get on to some questions.
Good morning. We are leaving on our first gorilla trek. We have an entire entourage of porters, and this is just to explain a little bit about the treks itself. Most of the stuff we need is exactly the same as what we have in the chimps. We'll have gaiters and nice hiking boots, long pants, long shirt, a raincoat pack because of the fact that we are in a rainforest. Some of the walking gets done outside of the park itself because they try and keep it as easy as possible. Walking through the jungle can be a little bit arduous. While it's beautiful, it can be tough on the legs. And So we're going to find the easiest route in. With NetApp, we supply one porter to you guys, which will look after your bag. It's my suggestion that you take a second. This allows for a push-pull effort if the climbing gets tough. The extra porter would cost about $20. That includes a tip, and really makes a big difference to the walk. So in the background up the top there, that's the forest that we're going to. So we'll walk along the road, making it as easy as possible for you all and see what's happening. Welcome to Bwindi Impenetrable Forest. This is a crazy cool environment, but dense and thick, and this is where the porters really help with the different getting you through all the little bits and pieces, under logs, over logs, up hills, down hills. We've just finished a trek with the gorillas, which was spectacular. We try and keep a distance of about 10 meters. But these guys don't understand the difference between what 10 meters is and 2 meters is. So there are times that we get closer and we try and respect their space as much as possible. But it was an amazing, amazing trek. And I hope that you have one when you come visit. Every day is different. Here we're walking straight into the forest and prepared for another day of trekking. We've got our porters, and we're always in a point where we lead with the slowest person. This is a full day event, so it's not about chasing to try and get there. We're not trying to test anyone's fitness, but being in the forest really early is quite spectacular for the light and just for the scenery. And at the moment, we're probably about 200 meters, like 300 yards away from our hotel, and getting closer on the way to a gorilla family. So some days are really close. We don't know where they're going to be later, but very cool nonetheless. Welcome to Rwanda and Volcanoes National Park. As you can see, it's a little bit more open, and we're at higher altitude, so we start at about 8,000 feet here, and these treks can go anything upwards to 10,000 plus, but for the most part, we're trying to get you the easiest walks possible. It's a very muddy terrain and can be quite sticky. Again, our one porter we provide is great, but taking a second one is really powerful in terms of helping you get through some of the thicker parts, stickier parts, and just making sure you keep your balance and enjoy the walk as much as possible. Yeah, gorillas here are slightly bigger based on the fact they've been pushed up in altitude. So the hair's longer, they've got a little reddish tinge on their forehead, and they're really beautiful. Love them, and have been habituated for a long time. So we've been walking for about 2 miles now, fairly flat, but again, every walk is unique. We don't know what we're going to encounter, and that's our story. So every day is different, and 3 lucky walks, and we're now climbing a bit of a mountain. It's a much longer walk. We've been in the forest for about 45 minutes now, scaling through deep jungle, avoiding nettles. So everything varies. Every time is unique, every time is different, and it's the way the cookie crumbles. So we prepare for this. It's always good to get fit and ensure that you're in the best physical condition for something like this. Just makes your trip that much more easy and enjoyable.
So to finish off, the one thing that I forgot to mention was in the packing to bring rain pants and gloves. And these are not for rain, it's for being able to the gloves to be able to handle some stuff in the forest so that you don't get stickered or spiked, because there are stinging nettles that occur there. And the rain pants are not for the rain, they're actually for use to stop your legs being poked by nettles, especially in Rwanda. Uganda, not so much of a problem, but Rwanda definitely. And that's what I have for you now. Rob, I'm sure you have a host of questions for me.
Thank you, Richard. We do have a few, but before we start in with them, I would like to remind everyone that you can submit your questions via the question field in your control panel. All right, let's get to these questions. So, is it going to be cold at night and in the mornings, or is it always going to be warm, hot, and humid?
So weather-wise, it can get cold, especially when we get to Rwanda side for those longer trips. Rwanda can get pretty chilly. Depending on the time of the year, we've just finished a trip now where it didn't get necessarily too cold, and a pullover came in handy every now and again. But generally towards the gorillas, where we start pushing altitude, it can get cooler. And in the day, it's beautiful temperatures, and then back to cooler again in the evening.
Great, thanks for addressing that. So how strict are the weight requirements? If I've got a bunch of camera equipment that I want to bring, how strict are you guys going to be?
We're strict. The reason being is that we can't overload the planes, firstly, so we're within a restriction on the planes. We do give you an extra, I think it is 15 pounds of luggage for photo trips, which gives you a bit of leeway. And like I say, we hold back on weight. The way I get by is my camera bag is often as heavy or heavier than my clothing bag. So I have about 10, 15 pounds, maybe 20 pounds of luggage with clothes, which I know I'm going to wash. And then I have 30 pounds of camera gear, because that's my focus. And I'd rather make sure that I'm washing my stuff and doing that than carrying extra things. It's not about looking fancy, it's about being practical.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. So what about laundry? If I wanted to save on weight, would I be able to wash anything along the way?
Yeah, so but at all three of the bigger, longer stays that we have, laundry is completely available. It gets back to you for the most part, especially in Uganda, within about the day. So if you send it in the morning, you generally get it back in the afternoon. But that's all dependent on rain. So you've got to work it out a little bit. And like I say, when I go in, I will wear one pair of pants for 2 chimp treks. And if they get muddy on the first one, no problems. I'll wear them the second day, and we go ahead just to make sure that we keep things light. And the next time we'll get them cleaned at the next lodge.
Great, thank you. So what about water? Am I going to have to worry about water, bringing iodine tablets, or are we always going to have access to fresh water?
Always going to have access to fresh water. All the lodges provide fresh filtered drinking water for you. We have bigger bottles of water which you can fill your bottles up from. The lodges are all well prepared for this. You can have ice during your journey. The fruit and veg are spectacular because they wash them off with filtered water. So the lodges are really geared for this, and you shouldn't have any water issues along the way. I just tell the guests, don't brush your teeth with the tap water, rather use the bottled water that's supplied and wash your toothbrush off with that, just to avoid any problems whatsoever.
That's something we would have thought of. Thanks for that bit of advice. So can you talk about the difference between the photo and the non-photo trips, besides the weight? What else are the advantages, or is there something I'm going to miss if I take one over the other?
So there is a Uganda naturalist trip, which is a 10-day itinerary, which follows 3 nights in Ndali with 2 chimp treks, 2 nights in Ishasha, and 3 nights in Bohoma with 2 gorilla treks. awesome trip. You will have the same photographic opportunities as everyone doing the photographic one, until the point that when we cross over into Rwanda, you will have another 2 treks in Rwanda and the golden monkeys to be able to photograph that side. So photographically, that's the difference. On the Uganda Rwanda non-photographic versus the photographic, is we are giving more photography centric advice along with the naturalist. So you'll still get the naturalist trip. You just have more luggage and more, call it tuition and help with cameras from the expedition leaders who will help you through those situations and ensure that that's happening. On the naturalist one, you might end up with a guide that's not photo oriented and may not be worried about photos or be able to assist you with getting better photos. And I can promise that if you're photographic centric, it is very helpful to have someone who knows what they're doing in that, because it is very difficult photographing the gorillas and chimps because of the low light situation. And you'll get a feel for that in that other webinar I did on photographing the gorillas.
Is there a difference between gorilla safaris in Uganda and Rwanda?
The jungle is different for the gorillas. In Uganda, you're going into Bwindi Impenetrable forest. It's a big primary rainforest, like this big picture behind us, where you have these massive trees. And this was an opening that we were in. It was very lucky that we were out there, but for the most part, we're in amongst the trees. The gorillas eat fruit there, which the gorillas in Rwanda do not. Where when we go to Rwanda, we're on the edge of volcanoes and they've been pushed all the way up. All the primary rainforest, this thicker type of jungle that we would call it, is gone because it's been put into agriculture, and you move higher up into the alpine regions of these volcanoes. So we start at about 8,000 feet. So there's a big difference. One starts at about 4,500 feet in Uganda. Rwanda starts at about 8,000 feet, and you're going up these volcanoes or between them, and the vegetation is lower, but it can be quite dense and very muddy and just different. I feel like the gorillas in Rwanda have been habituated a bit longer, so you get really close with them, and sometimes because things are quite enclosed, you can't be 10 meters away, otherwise you'd never see them, and they come walking by you and may grip your pants and pull them and do silly things like that, but we try not to interact as much as possible.
What about bugs? Are we going to be worried about bugs? Will bug spray be provided to us?
There is some bug spray provided at Ishasha. If you are worried about it, you bring some along, but bugs are not a huge issue. It is a malaria area, so you will have to consult your travel doctor in order to see what medications you will need. You will have to have a yellow fever injection before you come, because you need that for Uganda. Otherwise, they will give you one on arrival, and trust me, you don't want that happening, because you might end up a bit sick from the inoculation. But beyond that, the bug situation is fairly low. We just take the best precautions we can for the mosquitoes to avoid any malaria.
Do you recommend taking a malaria medicine in advance?
So the travel doctors will explain exactly how you should take them. They're varying medications. Some start before and end just on. Some are 2 or 3 tablets. Some are longer, where you're on it for 30 days. It all depends on what your travel doctor recommends for you.
Gotcha, thank you. So are there any colors that we should avoid wearing in the forest?
Bright colors. Luminous pink is not a bush color. Luminous orange is not a bush color. Neutral colored clothing is best, not just for blending in, but for your comfort, because neutral colored clothing is ideal for cooling. It actually keeps you cooler. And then if we're doing Ishasha, or especially if you're going more into Kenya on an extension, then to worry about your wearing dark blues and blacks because they attract tsetse flies. But for the most part, if you just stick to neutral colored clothing, you'll be in a happy space.
Great. Great to know. What about hiking poles? Is that something that we should consider bringing?
You can. If you hike with hiking poles regularly, it may be a thought process. In the gorillas and the chimps, they can provide you with a walking stick should you wish to have one. When we do the gorillas, I always tell people to take a walking stick that they offer. If you don't like it, you give it to your porter, they'll carry it for you. But it can be a bit of a hindrance walking with walking sticks because there's these bulbs at the bottom, especially in the chimps where it's quite thick, and they can get caught up on vines and slow your progress. But if you're, again, accustomed to using them, they may be useful to you.
Is American money good to bring for tips, and do you recommend small bills?
Absolutely. So all tips should be given out in, you can do in American dollars. And the notes have to be 2013 or later. They have to be in impeccable condition. A little tear, an ink mark on them, it destroys them. They can't use them. So when you go, you need to get smaller bills. 20s are good to get along the way. Again, we're trying to limit what you need to bring because of this way of tipping that you can use to tip afterwards, and we take care of a lot of it. But if you are bringing money for extra tips that you wish to give out, just make sure that the notes are 2013 and later, and ensure that they are in good condition. No tears, no ink marks or pen marks on them, and try to keep the folding to a minimum.
Will I need to bring an adapter for my electronics to plug into?
For the most part, no, because the lodges provide adapters in all the different spaces. So most of the lodges cover a few of the different types, and you should be able to get by with it without a problem. But if you're finicky and you need your specific things, then definitely bring one. They're inexpensive, and it would help to have a multi-plug that you can use anyway.
So what are the chances of me seeing gorillas on this trip? Are the guides in communication with each other? And is there a limited time that we will get to see the gorillas?
So we are limited to 1 hour with the chimps and gorillas per sighting. And that is left because any longer than that, the chances of passing on diseases to these animals goes up exponentially. So they figured that the 1 hour window is a great window within which we can do this. The chances of seeing the animals is almost 100%. Nothing ever is 100%, but it's almost 100%. The gorillas specifically, there are trackers that stay with the gorillas all day. So at 7 a.m. in the morning, the trackers go in to find where they'd left them the night before. And they will then track them down and find them. And they're in communication with the local guide who says, okay, this is going to be our easiest point of access to where they are, and then takes us on the shortest walk that he possibly can to get us to the gorillas. And then when we've done with our hour, we pull out, and the trackers will stay with those gorillas till about 5 p.m. when they start to settle and they start to nest. And this is one of their tool use things. They will build their own nests, and the trackers will leave and then come back in again 7 a.m. in the morning to look for those nests and then track the gorillas down again.
Thank you, Richard. Unfortunately, that's going to be the last question that we do have time for today. So I'm going to throw it back to you for your closing comments.
Thank you all for listening in. It is a magical trip. If there's anything you wish to know other than that, ask your adventure specialist about it. You can send me a direct message. I have no problem with answering those. And I really hope that one day I get to see you guys on this amazing adventure.
Thank you so much for taking the time to present for us today. And I would also like to thank everyone who tuned in today. Now, if you're interested in information on how you can travel with NatHab, give us a call at the number on your screen, or you can send us an email at info@nathab.com. Our adventure specialists are happy to help you out. Join us tomorrow for our next Daily Dose of Nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation, and we will have the replay available on our website soon. With that, I will conclude today's webinar. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you next time.